Hey folks, it's Nick Granville coming to you from Wellington, New Zealand. Today I thought I'd talk about one of my favourite Robben Ford tunes. This is a tune called Rugged Road from Robben Ford and the Blue Line. Fantastic album, great band, Tom Brecklin, Roscoe Beck and Robben Ford. But I thought I'd talk about this. I'm not going to deal with the solo today. I'll do that that could be a lesson all to its own. I thought I'd deal with all the rhythm guitar parts and how to approach the solo section chords. So let's dive into it. First up, the riff. So we have this riff that happens. It's just like pentatonic, but it's not like that. It's like this little blues kind of. And then like a double stop thing. Right? And that's kind of the main riff. The only other time it changes is like after the guitar solo, he goes. And he plays actually double stop all the lines. So instead of, he goes. So that's like a D and an F sharp. And then pretty straightforward, right? My favorite bit of this is rhythm guitar playing. Rhythm guitar playing wise, Robben has such great rhythm. I've talked about it before, that his sense of rhythm is badass. And it's a prime example of this in this song. So the main chord is kind of built off a B7, right? We have that riff, and then to lead into the next section, it goes D7 sharp 9, G sharp minor, E9 to B, right? This. And then we're at that point, right? And that was all that happened there was we went between the E9 and the B7, and then an F sharp chord, a 5 chord to lead us back to the 1, which is B. So it's in the key of B, B7. Quite an unusual key, isn't it? But I think that's what I like about it too. So it goes to the relative minor, G sharp minor, and then to the 4 chord dominant, to the 1 chord dominant. Sometimes I think I hear him putting that little finger in too. But it's like that sparkly kind of funky clean sound. It could be a Telecaster. It's quite different from the kind of lead tone that he uses in this song. So that's kind of the main chord progression, right? Except for when we get to the solo, and this is where it gets interesting, right? And this is kind of the bit I wanted to focus on today. I'm not going to play his solo, teacher's solo for now. I could do that. Let me know in the comments if you want me to cover the guitar solo, because I could do that. But today I want to show you kind of a way that you could approach it by playing your own solo, right? Which is really what it's all about. So the first chord of the solo is a D chord, D9 in this case, dominant, right? And then it goes to B. So you absolutely can't just blanket scale it. It's not going to work. They're unrelated chords, right? And that's one of the ones you really want to focus on, is trying to play those chord changes, which is what Robben does beautifully. When we go to the D chord, your natural instinct might be to play mixolydian, D mixolydian, right? So major scale, but with a flat 7. There's your major scale. Flat in the 7th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That gives you mixolydian, right? Right? And we can play it all over the neck, all that stuff. But we'll get to an approach for that, right? And then when we get back to the B7 chord, we play B mixolydian. And there's your flat 7. And another one. A classic major scale mode. B mixolydian. So I'm going to assume you know that. If you don't, go back and watch my video on the modes. I did one every day for a week, and I did one specifically on mixolydian. You'll find that in Guitar Daily. So really it's mixolydian, right? But like I mentioned, you have to change when you get to the D chord, because it's not going to work. So you have to go to D mixolydian. Now here's an easy way to kind of start approaching it. It's not the only way, but it's a good way to start. Is think B mixolydian, and then D mixolydian is actually the same set of notes as B Phrygian, and you would end up with this. That being your root note, a D note. So what you get is essentially, when we go to the D chord, think B Phrygian. When we get to the B chord, think B mixolydian. Then what happens is you're not jumping around. You can kind of continue your ideas through the chord change, and you can get a flow happening instead of like being very disjointed. You know, it's like a B7, I'm going to play this, and it goes to the D7, I'm going to play this, and it becomes this disjointed thing, right? So how do we practice that? Well, what I just covered there was probably one good way to do it. What you can do is just play B, let's start with B Phrygian because that's going to come first, and play up B Phrygian, and then go down B mixolydian. And the idea of that is we're trying to see how those lay on top of each other, right? So that when we're in the middle of a phrase, we can play through the chord change instead of being disrupted. Okay, another way to do it, and this is a kind of a crazy idea, but you could play just 3 strings on each. So B Phrygian, in other words, which is the same notes as D mixolydian, and then we go to B7, and then down Phrygian, and down mixolydian. Right, and again, we're just trying to see how they overlay over each other. You're not necessarily going to play like that, but it's an exercise, right? And you should start to get to kind of grips with it, right? Another thing you can do, of course, is play arpeggios. They work really great. All over the neck. So on and so on, right? You want to know those, and then you want to know where those are all over the neck so that you can see them, and you can kind of, as you're soloing again, pick out those notes that really work, right? So we have that happening, and then we go to here, and then of course it goes to the 4 chord, which general rules that apply on the 4 chord will apply here. Robben's approach seems to be to play the chord quite a bit, but he also sometimes just kind of plays pentatonic over stuff. He's also playing lines, and you know, and then it goes back to the D7 and back, right? And then we're back to the riff, and so on and so on. So the approaches for that solo section are we play B Phrygian going to B mixolydian, right? Which essentially is like D mixolydian to B mixolydian, right? We also can play the arpeggios over both of them. What do you do once you get past all that, right? We can start getting into lots of other things that Robben does, like chromaticism is a really good idea. It's going to sound great. You could get into stuff like trying to like spell other chord changes, right? Like maybe we could go like a 5 chord leading into that, or a 5 chord leading into that, or 2 5 1 leading into that, or any other kind of thing like that that you have an understanding on. You know, try implementing them, and what will happen is you'll play it, and you'll probably play it, and you'll be like, man, that just sounds like rubbish. And then you'll do it again, and you'll be like, that just sounds like rubbish too. And then you try something else, and maybe you'll have 10 attempts at it, and the 11th attempt you'll do something that sounds right to you, right? That's the rabbit hole to go down. When you find that little bit, go down that rabbit hole, develop it, get it happening into your playing, right? And then if you do this stuff enough, what happens is when you go to play a gig or a performance or whatever you do with your day, then or even over a backing track, you're playing over a backing track, the stuff will come out and sound in a natural kind of way, which is what we want. And it takes time. So give it some time. I'll include the lead sheet on the screen here, but if you want to go and get it, go to my Nick Granville music page, and I'll include it in there. It's one that I wrote when I used to work at the New Zealand School of Music. Pretty cool song. Yeah, anyway, I'll play you out with another solo on that solo section, and I'll try and demonstrate some of these things that I've been talking about.